Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing HFY stories. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads. Captain Adrian Rook stared out the viewport of the USS Endeavour, his mind 100 miles away from the routine report he was supposed to be filing. The stars outside twinkled in their cold, distant brilliance as they always did. But today, there was an unsettling tension in the air that even the peaceful hum of the ship's engines couldn't shake off. The crew had been on edge for the past few weeks, ever since their first contact mission to the remote planet Neiman 7 had turned unexpectedly complicated. Captain, his first officer, Lieutenant Maya Sinclair, approached him. Her expression was serious, her voice tense. "We're picking up an unregistered craft in our vicinity." "Odd, sir. No known markings and it's coming in fast." Rook's heart skipped a beat. The idea of alien life wasn't new, but every encounter so far had been a diplomatic mission or a peaceful exchange. He couldn't help but wonder if this one would be different. "Set a course to intercept," Rook ordered, taking his seat at the command console. "Alert the crew and prepare for whatever comes next. Sinclair, you're with me?" Minutes later, the Endeavour was in pursuit of the mysterious craft. It was unlike any ship Rook had ever seen. Sleek and angular, made of a dark metallic material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As the ship drew closer, the crew's tension was palpable. The unknown could be dangerous. "Incoming transmission, Captain," the communications officer reported. "It's in a language we don't recognize." "Put it on the screen," Rook said. The screen flickered before displaying an image that shocked him. A woman. Tall, slender, and graceful, her skin was a deep shade of violet, and her silver hair seemed to shimmer like the stars outside. Her eyes glowed with an ethereal light, and her expression was unreadable. She was alone. "Captain Adrian Rook, I come in peace," the woman's voice echoed through the room, speaking in perfect English as if she'd known the language for centuries. Rook blinked, surprised. He'd never been greeted so formally, especially not by an alien species. There was something regal about her presence, but also a strange vulnerability. She didn't seem to be threatening, but her sudden appearance raised more questions than answers. "What do you want?" Rook asked, trying to keep his composure. He noticed that she wasn't smiling, her demeanor both serene and cautious. "I wish to speak with you, Captain," the woman said, her voice soft but steady. "I seek your counsel and I request asylum for my people." Rook exchanged a glance with Lieutenant Sinclair. This wasn't the usual diplomatic request, nor the first contact they were prepared for. "Asylum? From what?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "My name is Celine of the Virians," she began. "My people have been hunted for millennia by a race of conquerors, the Othrans. They are relentless and they have destroyed every world we once called home. We are all that is left. I beg you, Captain, help us." The plea in her voice was so genuine that Rook found himself momentarily speechless. The weight of her words hit him hard, millennia of persecution, and her race reduced to nothing but a handful of survivors, fleeing for their lives. "Why come to us?" Sinclair asked, voicing the question everyone aboard the ship was likely asking themselves. "Why not the Federation or the Alliance?" Celine's gaze softened, her silver hair shimmering as she moved her hands slowly in front of her, almost as if to gesture to something invisible. "I have traveled through many star systems, but none have been willing to accept us. They fear the Othrans and their power. But I have heard of your people, Captain. I have heard of humanity's strength, your courage in the face of overwhelming odds. You have faced threats before and emerged victorious. You are our last hope." Rook was silent, considering her words. He had heard of humanity's reputation across the galaxy, one that had spread far beyond Earth's borders. They had a history of defeating impossible odds, from hostile alien invasions to civil war and back again. They were known not only for their technological prowess but also for their relentless will to survive. "We've never faced an enemy like the Othrans," Rook said after a long pause. "You're asking for sanctuary, but what are you offering in return? We don't take such risks lightly." Celine's eyes darkened, and Rook could see a flicker of pain pass over her otherwise composed face. "I cannot promise you wealth or military might, but I can offer knowledge. The Othrans have advanced weapons and technology that we have been unable to understand fully. I have the key to their downfall. If you will help us, I will teach you how to defeat them." The silence that followed was heavy. Rook looked at Sinclair, who was staring at the screen, her face unreadable. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The Othrans sounded like a threat beyond anything humanity had faced, but Celine's words rang with a kind of truth that was impossible to ignore. "All right," Rook said finally, making up his mind. "We'll provide you with asylum. but under one condition. Celine's eyes widened slightly and she tilted her head, waiting for him to continue. We need to know everything. We can't afford to make any mistakes if we're going to fight the Othrans. Celine bowed her head in acknowledgement, her expression filled with gratitude. I understand. Thank you, Captain. Before Rook could respond, something unexpected happened. Celine's eyes flickered for just a moment, and before anyone could react, she knelt down in front of the camera, her head lowered in a gesture of reverence. Rook froze. It wasn't just an ordinary sign of respect. It felt different. It felt like something deeper, like a ritual. What are you doing? He asked, his voice a mixture of confusion and concern. Celine's voice was soft, almost a whisper. I kneel before you, Captain, because you are the one who will save us. You are the one who will lead us into the light. I have seen it in the stars. Her words hung in the air, the silence stretching long after she had finished speaking. Rook could only stare at her, utterly perplexed. Why had she knelt? What did she mean by that? He didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was certain. The journey ahead would be anything but ordinary. The fate of an entire species rested on his shoulders, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something much larger than he had ever imagined. Adrian Rook sat at the command center of the USS Endeavour, staring at the empty seat across from him. The silence in the room felt oppressive, thick with uncertainty. His mind was racing, replaying the moment Celine had knelt before him. He had seen the gesture, understood it in some instinctual way, but it didn't make any sense. She had looked at him as though he was not just a captain of a ship, not just a man but something more. Something destined. Captain, we've made contact with the Federation. Lieutenant Maya Sinclair's voice broke through his thoughts. She was standing at his side, her face tight with concern. They're requesting an immediate update on our situation. Given the nature of this encounter, they want us to prepare for a full-scale debriefing. Rook nodded but didn't respond immediately. His mind was elsewhere, turning over the new reality of the situation. An alien species, an ancient one at that, had just appeared on their doorstep, asking for asylum and offering secrets that could change the entire galaxy. And the strange, unsettling feeling that Celine's words had stirred in him wasn't going away. She said the Othrans are unstoppable, Rook murmured. And that we can stop them. He paused, glancing at Sinclair. What do you think of her, Maya? Sinclair crossed her arms, her usual confidence slipping. I don't know, sir. She's not what I expected. When I saw her kneel, it wasn't just respect. It felt like she's placing her faith in you, like she believes you're more than just a captain. I don't know if it's faith in humanity, or something more personal. Rook shook his head. That doesn't make sense. She's seen other races. Surely we're no different than any other species she's encountered. Sinclair didn't answer immediately, clearly grappling with the implications herself. What do you think it means, sir? That she kneels before you? Rook's gaze turned back to the screen showing Celine's ship. The sleek, alien vessel had been docked in the Endeavour's hangar bay for the last hour. The crew had moved quickly to secure the area just in case, but Rook knew this wasn't about a standard diplomatic exchange. This was something much larger. We need to talk to her again, Rook said, standing up from his chair. We're not leaving this space until we understand exactly what she wants, and what she's not telling us. Later that afternoon, Celine was escorted to the briefing room, flanked by 2 security officers. As she entered, her presence seemed to draw the attention of the entire room. The way she carried herself, almost ethereal, yet undeniably powerful, made every other person in the room feel small by comparison. Rook stood as she entered, though his own posture was more tense than respectful. He had been steeling himself for another conversation with the enigmatic woman, hoping to find some clue that would untangle the mystery surrounding her. Captain Rook, she said, bowing her head once again, though this time it was more measured. Her violet skin seemed to glow under the dim light of the room, and her silver hair cascaded down her back in waves. There was something undeniably otherworldly about her, a quiet grace in everything she did. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me once more. Rook studied her for a long moment before responding. You've made some extraordinary claims, Celine. You said that we are the key to defeating the Othrans. That's not a small thing to ask of anyone, let alone a race that doesn't even know your enemies. So I need answers. I need to understand exactly what you meant when you knelt before me. Celine's eyes flickered, and she appeared to consider her words carefully before speaking. I understand your doubt. But it is not just my hope that you will save us, Captain. I have seen it. In the stars. The room fell silent at her words, and Rook couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. What do you mean by that? What did you see? She took a step forward, and for a moment Rook could have sworn she was radiating a soft, almost celestial light. It was subtle but undeniable, a presence that tugged at something deep within him. "I am a seer," she began, her voice softer now as though sharing a deeply personal truth. "For generations, my people have had the gift of seeing beyond the veil of time. We can glimpse into the future, see what might come to pass. And I have seen you, Captain Rook. Not just you as a man, but you as the leader of humanity, your species, your people. You are the one who will bring about the end of the Othran menace. It is your strength, your resilience that will be the deciding factor." Rook's mind reeled. A seer? Was she telling him that she had seen some kind of prophecy? He had never been one for mysticism, but something about the way she spoke, like she truly believed it, made him hesitate. "So what are we supposed to do with this prophecy?" Rook asked, his voice betraying a mix of frustration and disbelief. "How do we stop them? You're asking us to fight an enemy we don't understand. How can we fight them if we don't know what we're up against?" Celine's eyes grew distant, and for a moment she seemed to be lost in thought. "The Othrans are not just conquerors, Captain. They are masters of manipulation. Their power comes not from strength alone, but from their ability to twist the minds of those they subjugate. They will turn your people against you, create dissent, turn the tide of war in their favor without lifting a finger." Rook's stomach tightened. The idea of an enemy who could manipulate not only the battlefield but also the will of entire species was terrifying. "And you believe humanity can stand against that?" Sinclair spoke up from the side, her voice skeptical. Celine turned her eyes on her, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I have seen it, Lieutenant. Your species has something others do not, a unique resilience. Where other races bend to the will of invaders, humanity stands tall. You fight when you have nothing left to give. It is your greatest strength." Rook felt a flicker of pride at her words, but it was short-lived. The gravity of the situation was beginning to weigh heavily on him. "I'm not sure I understand," he said slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "If we can fight the Othrans, why hasn't anyone else? Why hasn't your people's resistance worked?" Celine's expression grew pained, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because the Othrans have something far more dangerous than an army. They have knowledge of the stars, of the very fabric of the universe itself. They can read the patterns of destiny, and they have learned to bend them to their will." Rook could see the weight of those words settling in. What Celine was telling him was that the Othrans didn't just conquer worlds, they rewrote the future itself. And if that was true, then their only chance of survival might depend on something far greater than their technology, their tactics, or their strength. It might depend on something far more mysterious. Something that Celine believed was within humanity's reach. Rook felt a chill run down his spine. And yet, despite the uncertainty gnawing at him, he also felt a stirring of hope. Maybe Celine wasn't the only one who had seen something in the stars. Maybe, just maybe, humanity really was the key to something far greater than anyone had imagined. The question now was, what would they do with it? The briefing room grew quiet as Captain Adrian Rook absorbed Celine's words. The weight of the situation was settling over him like a dark cloud. He had heard of great destinies before, tales of ancient prophecies and heroic leaders rising to face impossible odds. But now, it seemed he was at the heart of one of those very tales. Only this wasn't a legend. This was reality. And the stakes couldn't have been higher. He turned to Lieutenant Maya Sinclair, who was standing at his side, her arms crossed in thought. The look in her eyes mirrored the uncertainty that churned in his gut. "So, you're telling me the Othrans can control the future itself?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. "That's not just a threat. That's a weapon." Celine, still standing in front of them, nodded solemnly. "The Othrans are not mere conquerors, Captain Rook. Their knowledge of the stars, the way they understand the flow of time, it's more advanced than anything your people have ever encountered. They can see the possible futures and choose the one that serves them best. They can alter the course of events as easily as you would turn a page in a book." Rook shook his head, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. "And you say humanity is the key to stopping them? Oh, how are we supposed to fight something like that?" Celine's silver eyes seemed to glow with a quiet intensity, the edges of her form almost shimmering in the dim light. "It is because of your resilience, your unpredictability. The Othrans cannot account for the sheer will of a species that refuses to be controlled. They can predict many outcomes, but not the will of humanity to fight back when all seems lost. That is the key. It is your strength of spirit that will make the difference." Rook stood motionless, contemplating her words. The idea that humanity's will to fight was something that could disrupt the Othrans' ability to predict the future was both empowering and terrifying. What if it wasn't enough? What if the Othrans had already seen this too? The Othrans have tried before, Celine continued, breaking his thoughts. They have manipulated other civilizations, twisted them to their will, and crushed them when they resisted. But they could never foresee the power that lies in the hearts of those who refuse to be bent. That's what you saw in me, isn't it? Rook asked, his voice barely above a whisper. That's why you kneel before me. You believe I can lead humanity to this victory. But I don't even know what we're up against yet. Celine's gaze softened. You are more than a Captain Adrian Rook. You are a symbol of the strength of your people. I have seen the way you lead, the way you inspire those around you. That is what will turn the tide. You will guide them, Captain. Rook's thoughts spun. A symbol? He wasn't a hero. He was just a man, a soldier trying to keep his crew safe. The idea that he was part of some grand destiny seemed absurd. But Celine's unwavering conviction left him no choice but to consider it. How do we start? Sinclair asked, her voice practical, cutting through the tension. What's the first step? You say we have to understand the Othrans, but we don't even know what they really look like. For all we know, we could be fighting ghosts. Celine straightened, her demeanor shifting. The Othrans are not like you or me. They are creatures of the mind, born from the void between stars. Their true forms are intangible, shifting like shadows. But they have taken physical vessels, warships and soldiers, that make them formidable adversaries. I have seen these vessels. They are massive, impenetrable and fast. Their fleets can traverse the stars in a matter of days. And their weapons are unlike anything you've encountered before. Rook clenched his fists, his mind racing with the realization that this fight would not be like anything humanity had faced before. He had faced alien invaders, sure, but never an enemy who could manipulate reality itself. Never an enemy that could control time. So what can we do? Rook asked, his voice tinged with frustration. How do we fight them? If they can see the future, then they must already know we're coming. Celine stepped closer to the table, her expression serious. You must disrupt their ability to predict what happens next. You must make them doubt the future they have seen. That is why I have brought you the key. The Othrans have a source of power, a machine hidden in the heart of their empire. It is called the Oracle, a device that allows them to peer into the fabric of time itself. Destroying it will cripple their ability to see the future, leaving them vulnerable. Rook blinked in shock. Destroy a machine that controls time? That sounds like something out of a fairy tale. It is real, Celine said firmly. And you will have to find it. The Oracle is located on a world called Viral, deep in Othran space. It is their most sacred site and it is heavily guarded. If you can destroy the Oracle, you will rob them of their greatest weapon. And with it, you will have a fighting chance. Rook felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in his chest. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the very fabric of existence. If they could destroy the Oracle, they could shatter the Othrans' control over time itself. If they failed, if they made even one misstep, it could mean the end of everything. We need a plan, Sinclair said, her voice cutting through the silence. We can't just rush into Othran space without knowing more. If their defenses are as strong as you say, Celine, we're going to need every advantage we can get. I will help you, Celine replied. I have seen the path. I know where the Oracle is hidden and I can guide you through Othran space. But there is a cost. The Othrans will not simply sit back and let you destroy their Oracle. They will come for you. They will stop at nothing to protect it. Rook exhaled slowly, steeling himself for the inevitable. Then we'll be ready. He turned to Sinclair, his first officer. Get the crew ready for a long journey. We leave as soon as we have a course. I'll brief everyone on the mission details. As Sinclair moved to relay the orders, Rook stayed behind, his mind whirling with possibilities. The fate of humanity, and perhaps all the galaxies, was now tied to a single mission, a desperate high-risk strike against the Othran Oracle. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a thought began to settle. Was Celine right? Could humanity's indomitable spirit truly be enough to defy the Othrans and change the course of time itself? But even as doubt crept in, Rook knew one thing for certain. They had no choice but to try. The USS Endeavour was silent, the hum of its engines a steady reminder of the perilous journey ahead. Captain Adrian Rook stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space stretching out before them. The stars twinkled like cold, indifferent beacons, their light nothing more than a distant memory of a time long past. Somewhere in that black void lay the Othran Empire, and within it, the Oracle, the machine that controlled the flow of time itself. The key to their future and their potential salvation. Captain, Lieutenant Maya Sinclair's voice broke through his thoughts. We've charted a course through Othran space. It'll take us about 3 weeks at full speed, but that's with full stealth. Any wrong move, and the Othrans will know we're coming? Rook nodded, his gaze hardening. We're not just making a move, Lieutenant. We're making a statement. If we succeed, we change the game. If we fail, we don't get a second chance. He turned toward the small, nearly invisible figure seated at the communications panel. Celine was still with them, her presence as calming as it was unsettling. She had insisted on coming along, claiming she was the only one who could guide them through Othran space. Her connection to the stars, to the flow of time, was their best chance at navigating the perilous journey. How much farther until we're in range of Othran-controlled space? Rook asked, his voice low, eyes never leaving the viewport. 5 days, Sinclair replied. We'll be entering their territory in about 120 hours. We've set our course to avoid the major patrol routes, but the Othrans are unpredictable. We'll need to be prepared for anything. Rook nodded grimly. Prepare the crew. I want everyone on high alert. We can't afford any mistakes. The next few days passed in a tense, almost suffocating silence. The crew moved in practiced precision, their minds focused entirely on the task at hand. The quiet hum of the engines was the only sound that broke the stillness as the Endeavour cruised deeper into enemy territory. Rook spent long hours in his quarters, poring over the information they had gathered, trying to anticipate what they might face on Viral, the Othran world where the Oracle was hidden. But no amount of preparation could shake the gnawing unease in the pit of his stomach. The Othrans were a race unlike any humanity had encountered before. Their ability to manipulate time, to predict the future, made them a formidable foe. Rook had to remind himself that humanity's strength wasn't in their technology alone. It was in their adaptability, their resilience. And Celine had been adamant. Their unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The Othrans couldn't see the future when it was shaped by sheer willpower. That belief was the only thing keeping him focused. 5 days later, the Endeavour entered the outer reaches of Othran space. The stars seemed darker here, the blackness of the void more profound. The ship's cloaking system was running at full capacity, rendering them invisible to all but the most sophisticated sensors. Still, the feeling of being hunted hung in the air like a storm cloud. Every moment was tense, every creak and groan of the ship felt like it could give them away. Captain, we've detected movement ahead, the sensor officer, Lieutenant Juno, called out from her station. 2 Othran warships. They're on a collision course. Rook's heart skipped a beat. The Othran ships were fast, powerful, and nearly invisible to most scanners. Their stealth technology rivaled humanity's best, making them nearly impossible to detect until it was too late. If they didn't do something now, the Endeavour would be spotted and destroyed before they even got close to their target. Shut down all non-essential systems, Rook ordered. Engage the cloaking field at maximum capacity. We're going to have to outrun them. Sinclair turned to him, her eyes sharp with concern. Do we have enough power for that? The cloak and the engines at full capacity? We don't have a choice, Rook said, his voice cold with resolve. We have to get through. I won't risk the mission by turning back now. The ship lurched as the cloaking field activated, and the crew braced for impact. The Othran warships were closing in, their presence detected only by the faintest ripple in the ship's sensor array. Rook's knuckles whitened as he gripped the armrests of his chair. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he kept his gaze fixed straight ahead. Captain, we've lost sensor contact, Juno reported. They're too close. We've been detected. The ship shook violently as the Othran ships fired their weapons, and Rook heard the telltale whine of an energy blast skimming past the Endeavour. The entire crew jolted in their seats, the ship rattling from the near miss. All hands brace for impact. Rook shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Helm, evasive maneuvers. The ship lurched to the left, narrowly avoiding another blast. The Othran ships were relentless, pursuing with calculated precision. Rook knew they didn't have much time before the Endeavour was torn apart by the Othran guns. Celine, he called out over the noise, his voice urgent. Can you help us? Celine rose slowly from her seat, her face serene despite the chaos unfolding around her. Trust me, Captain, she said softly, her silver eyes glowing faintly. I can guide you. Without another word, she closed her eyes, her lips moving in a quiet incantation. The ship's systems flickered, and the Endeavour suddenly shifted course, twisting and turning in ways that defied conventional physics. The Othran ships, despite their superior technology, couldn't keep up. Rook watched in disbelief as Celine's guidance allowed them to weave through the chaos like a ship navigating through a storm, always one step ahead, always out of reach. We've escaped their targeting range, Juno reported, her voice laced with awe. We're clear. For now. Rook exhaled a breath he didn't realize he was holding, his heart still racing. Nice work, Lieutenant. And you, Celine, how did you do that? Celine opened her eyes, a soft smile touching her lips. Time is not a straight line, Captain. It bends and twists and I can see the patterns. I knew where you needed to go before you even made the decision. Rook couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. Her words sounded like something out of an ancient myth, and yet there was a certain undeniable truth to them. She wasn't just guiding the ship through Othran space, she was shaping their path through time itself. We'll need more of that, Rook said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Keep us in the shadows, Celine. We can't afford to be caught again. I will, Celine assured him, her gaze distant as though already seeing their next move. As they pressed deeper into Othran space, the Endeavor grew smaller in comparison to the vastness of the empire they were infiltrating. The ship's stealth systems were pushed to their limits, and Rook knew it was only a matter of time before they were discovered again. The Othrans were relentless, and sooner or later, they would catch on to the fact that someone was attempting to breach their most sacred site. But that thought was something Rook would push from his mind for the time being. For now, they had made it through the first wave of danger. They had a mission to complete. We're not just fighting for our lives, Rook said quietly to Sinclair, his eyes hardening as the looming threat of the Oracle grew closer. We're fighting for the future. For the entire galaxy. Sinclair nodded, her expression grim. Let's make sure we don't let anyone down, sir. With that, the Endeavor pressed onward, slipping further into the heart of Othran's space. Every moment, every maneuver was a dance with death. But they had come too far to turn back now. The Oracle awaited. The Endeavor continued its silent voyage deeper into the heart of Othran space. Every turn, every sudden shift in trajectory, felt like a razor-thin margin between life and death. The Othrans, with their advanced technology and uncanny mastery of time, could be anywhere. At any moment the cloaking device might fail, and their enemies would be upon them. Captain Adrian Rook stood in the dimly lit command center, his fingers tapping restlessly against the edge of the table. The past few days had been a blur of tense navigation and close calls, but now they were approaching Viral, the Othran homeworld, where the Oracle was hidden. Despite the success of their evasive maneuvers, the crew knew the hardest part was yet to come. How long until we reach Viral? Rook asked, his voice tight with focus. Less than 24 hours, Captain, Lieutenant Sinclair responded. She'd been by his side through every decision, every narrow escape, and her usual cool demeanor had started to show cracks. The situation was wearing on everyone. Our approach vector is clear for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're detected soon. The Othrans will be watching for anything moving within their borders, especially near their capital. Rook turned his gaze toward Celine, who had been quiet for much of the journey. The alien woman's presence had been oddly comforting, but there were moments when Rook couldn't help but wonder what other truths she was hiding. She claimed to be able to see the flow of time, to bend it to her will, but was that enough to defeat the Othrans, or were they walking straight into a trap? Celine met his gaze, her silver eyes reflecting the dim glow of the bridge. I can sense their movements, Captain, she said softly, almost as though speaking to herself. The Othrans are preparing for something. They are not blind to your approach. The Oracle will not be easy to reach. Rook felt his throat tighten. What exactly do you mean, preparing? Can you be more specific? Celine closed her eyes for a moment, as though listening to a distant voice only she could hear. There is a great force surrounding Viral. Not just ships or soldiers, but something older. Something that draws its strength from the very fabric of time itself. The Oracle is not just a machine. It is a conduit, a nexus of power. If you are to destroy it, you must be ready for the consequences. Consequences? Sinclair repeated, her brow furrowing. What kind of consequences are we talking about? Celine's voice grew distant, her eyes opening to reveal an eerie, almost otherworldly glow. If the Oracle is destroyed, the fabric of time itself will ripple. The Othrans will feel it, if they survive it, and the universe will shift. The moment will fracture, the future and the past will blur. The Othrans have built their empire on this power, and destroying the Oracle will break them. But it will not come without a price. Rook's gut clenched at her words. He had expected challenges, danger, resistance, even betrayal, but the idea that they might destroy a fundamental part of reality itself was unsettling, to say the least. How much time do we have before they make their move? Rook asked, trying to focus on what he could control. What do we need to do? Celine's lips curled into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it. You must act quickly. Time is closing in on you. The longer you wait, the more the Othrans will prepare. If they detect your ship, they will come for you with everything they have. Rook turned toward Sinclair, his mind made up. We're going in. No turning back. She nodded. Understood, Captain. Preparing a plan for infiltration. We'll get as close as we can without triggering any alarms. Once we're inside their defenses, it's up to you to lead the assault on the Oracle. Right, Rook said, his voice heavy. He moved to the command console, his mind already racing through contingencies. Helm, bring us into position. All crew prepare for action. We're making our final push. As the ship closed in on Viral, the crew could feel the tension thickening. Rook kept his eyes trained on the view screen, watching as the massive planet loomed larger and larger, its surface shrouded in ominous clouds that swirled like a storm ready to break. Viral's surface was a patchwork of ancient cities and vast, barren landscapes, all centered around the immense, glowing spire that was the Oracle's resting place. Captain, Lieutenant Juno said, her voice strained, we've detected a large energy spike near the planet's surface. It's coming from the Oracle's location. Rook's heart skipped a beat. They know we're here. We're still cloaked, Captain, Sinclair countered, glancing at the readouts. It's possible that the spike isn't from us. It could be a planetary defense system, something we haven't seen before. Rook turned to Celine, his brow furrowing. Do you know what's happening down there? Celine's face was drawn, her silver eyes clouded with uncertainty. I feel the disturbance. It is not just technology. It is something alive. The Oracle is not just a machine. It is a living entity, a manifestation of the Othran Empire's will. Whatever it is watching you. Rook clenched his fists, steeling himself for what was to come. All the more reason to destroy it before it destroys us. The Endeavor slipped through the atmosphere of Viral, its cloaking device pushing the limits of its power. The planet's surface was a bleak expanse of towering black spires and jagged mountains, but in the distance the Oracle loomed, a colossal, impossibly ancient structure glowing with a faint, eerie light. The Endeavor hovered just above the surface, its cloaking field now a faint shimmer barely detectable even by the Othrans. Rook turned to Sinclair. Are we close enough? Yes, Sinclair replied. We've made it to the surface undetected for now, but we need to get to the Oracle without triggering any alarms. If they spot us... I know, Rook interrupted. We'll be ready for anything. Celine stepped forward, her expression unreadable. The Oracle lies ahead, but beware, it is not just a physical structure. It is woven into the very fabric of this world, and its defenses are tied to something far older than the Othran Empire itself. You may face more than just soldiers. Rook exhaled, forcing himself to remain calm. He was used to danger, used to being on the edge. But something about Celine's words felt different. The Oracle wasn't just a target, it was a force, and they were walking into its lair. Let's move, Rook said, his voice resolute. We go in, we destroy the Oracle, and we get out. No second chances. The team was ready. With weapons in hand, they moved as one, exiting the Endeavor and heading toward the spire-like structure in the distance. Every step felt heavier, as though the very ground beneath them was watching them. The distant hum of the Oracle's energy echoed through the air, a constant reminder of the power they were about to challenge. They were closer now. The dark clouds above them swirled as though something was stirring within them. The Oracle was waiting. And it knew they were coming. The Oracle loomed before them, a dark, impossibly tall structure that seemed to stretch far beyond the sky. Its surface shimmered with an eerie, pulsating light, as if the very air around it was vibrating with immense power. As Captain Rook and his team made their way across the barren landscape, the atmosphere seemed to thicken, a weight pressing down on their every step. The ground trembled underfoot, not from any physical force, but from something far more intangible, the shifting of time itself. Rook's mind raced as he led the group toward the Oracle's base. The closer they got, the more oppressive the air became. The humming sound from the spire resonated within his chest, as if the Oracle were alive, aware of their every move. Keep your guard up, Rook said, his voice a low command. We don't know what we're walking into. Celine, walking beside him, seemed unaffected by the pressure in the air. Her silver eyes were distant, as though she was already seeing beyond the present moment. This place is ancient. Not just in age but in its purpose. The Oracle is a machine, yes, but it is also a key. The Othrans built their empire on it, but they did not create it. They merely found it. What do you mean? Sinclair asked, her tone tense as she kept her eyes scanning the horizon. Found it where? Celine's gaze lingered on the towering spire ahead. It was here long before the Othrans. This planet, this structure, It is tied to something much older. Something the Othrans could not understand when they first encountered it. The Oracle is more than a tool, it is a bridge between realities, a way to manipulate time itself. But only the Othrans, with their warped sense of superiority, ever believed they could control it. Rook felt a chill run through him. And we can control it? Celine's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. You will not control it, Captain. You will destroy it. The team continued forward in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. The Oracle was more than a machine. It was a force, a relic from a time long forgotten, and destroying it would not just bring down the Othran Empire, it would tear at the fabric of time itself. They reached the base of the spire, where the energy signature they had been tracking seemed to pulse from within the stone. A massive set of doors stood before them, sealed by a shifting, glowing pattern that writhed like liquid metal. There's no way we can break through this without triggering some kind of alarm, Juno said, her voice tight with apprehension. It's as if the entire structure is alive. Celine stepped forward, her fingers brushing lightly against the shimmering surface of the door. This is not a door. It's a barrier, one that responds to those who approach. Time is not linear here. This place exists outside the flow of time. I will need to guide it, to open the path. Rook's hand instinctively moved to the weapon at his side. He had no idea what was about to happen, but he could sense the danger. Something was stirring inside the Oracle, and it was waiting for them. The humming grew louder, vibrating through the soles of his boots, as though the very planet was alive with anticipation. Are you sure you can do this? Rook asked, his voice calm but edged with doubt. Celine met his gaze, her silver eyes filled with an ancient wisdom. I can, Captain. But I cannot open the way indefinitely. Once the path is clear, you must go quickly. The longer you linger, the more the Oracle will resist. The air grew thick with an unnatural stillness as Celine's fingers traced the glowing patterns on the door. Slowly, the pattern began to shift, the liquid metal warping as the door started to slide open. A deep, resonating hum echoed from the Oracle, and the ground beneath them trembled, as though the structure itself was waking up. Rook's heart pounded in his chest as the door creaked open, revealing a dark passage that seemed to stretch into infinity. The air inside was colder, and a strange energy pulsed from within, beckoning them onward. Let's move, Rook ordered, taking the first step into the darkness. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the Oracle, the team's footsteps were the only sound that broke the oppressive silence. The walls of the passage were smooth, metallic, and dark, and strange symbols flickered along the edges, symbols that seemed to twist and change as they walked past, as if they were shifting through time itself. The further they went, the more the air grew thick with an intangible presence. Something ancient, watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake. At the end of the passage, they reached a massive chamber, its size beyond comprehension. In the center of the room stood the Oracle, a towering, multifaceted structure that seemed to pulse with energy. It was a machine, yes, but there was an organic quality to it, as though it were part of the planet itself. The glow from within it was bright, almost blinding, casting long shadows across the chamber. Rook's eyes narrowed as he approached the Oracle. The room seemed to ripple around them, and he felt the pull of time itself, stretching and bending, as if the Oracle were the nexus of reality. The feeling was overwhelming, terrifying. Is this it? Sinclair whispered, her voice full of awe and fear. This is what they've been hiding all this time? Celine stepped forward, her face a mask of solemnity. This is the heart of the Othran Empire's power. This is the source of their domination over time. And this is where it all ends. Rook drew his weapon, his voice steady. We'll destroy it. All of it. As he took a step forward, the Oracle pulsed with a deep, resonating sound that seemed to shake the very fabric of the room. The symbols along the walls began to glow brighter, and the air grew heavier, charged with energy. It was as though the Oracle itself was reacting to their presence, and it wasn't pleased. Suddenly, a voice filled the chamber, low, rumbling, and ancient, yet unmistakably clear. Why do you seek to destroy that which you cannot understand? The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, vibrating through Rook's bones. You who are but children in the face of time's true power. The Othrans are nothing. Their empire is nothing. But you, your kind, is an abomination. You seek to undo the flow of time itself. Do you truly believe you can? Rook's grip tightened on his weapon, but before he could respond, Celine stepped forward. We understand enough. Time is not a chain to be broken by the few. It belongs to all. The Oracle has been used to enslave the galaxy, and we will not let it continue. The Oracle's voice was almost a sigh, like the wind through an ancient tree. Then you will suffer the consequences of your ignorance. The ground trembled again and Rook felt the air shift, becoming thick with energy. The Oracle was preparing to retaliate, and the price of their mission was about to be paid. The fabric of reality itself seemed to tear as the energy in the room grew unbearable. Rook turned to his team. Get ready. This isn't over yet. With a final, resolute breath, he advanced toward the Oracle, his every step carrying the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. They had come this far. Now they had to finish it. The galaxy's future depended on it. As Rook's team readied their weapons, Celine's voice rang out once more, her words almost lost to the howling chaos of the Oracle's power. You will break the chains of time. But beware, the ripples of destruction will change everything. And with that, the battle for time itself began. The Oracle's power was a living thing, vast and unknowable, and as Rook advanced toward it, the air grew thick with an unnatural force. The glowing symbols along the walls pulsed faster, and the energy around them vibrated as if reality itself was coming apart. The floor beneath their feet hummed with a deep resonance, a vibration that seemed to penetrate to the core of every being in the room. The team stood together, weapons drawn, every muscle taut, ready for what was to come. Rook's eyes never left the Oracle. It was massive, too massive to comprehend, and yet, in that moment he knew it wasn't just a machine. It was alive, part of something much larger than anyone could grasp. It thrummed with an ancient energy, an energy that held the universe together, and yet could easily destroy it. We need to act now, Rook said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. The room was thick with tension, the presence of the Oracle like a suffocating weight pressing down on them. Celine's silver eyes shone with a strange light, her face serene as she studied the Oracle. It is not enough to simply destroy it, she said softly, almost to herself. To destroy the Oracle would be to destroy the very fabric of time. We must be careful. The consequences of this action could be irreversible. Careful? Sinclair snapped, her eyes blazing with determination. We don't have time to be careful. The Othrans are coming. This is our only chance to end it. Rook nodded, knowing she was right. They had already come too far and there was no turning back. He motioned to his team. We'll need to destroy it, whatever it takes. Move fast. Stay together. As they moved toward the Oracle, a sudden shift in the air signaled that the Oracle was aware of their presence. The energy in the room intensified, the walls vibrating more violently, and the hum of the Oracle became a low, guttural growl. You seek to end me, to break the chain of time, the voice rumbled again, filling the chamber with a deep, unsettling resonance. It wasn't a voice from any one place. It came from everywhere, vibrating through the very atoms around them. You do not understand. I am the beginning and the end. I am the nexus of all that is and all that will ever be. Without me, your world will unravel. Rook gritted his teeth, refusing to let fear or doubt slow him down. He raised his weapon, aiming it at the core of the Oracle. We've come this far. We're not turning back. The Oracle's hum deepened, shifting in pitch. You cannot destroy what is eternal. You cannot stop the flow of time itself. The voice seemed to echo in their minds now, overwhelming them with a sense of infinite power. You are mere mortals, born of the ephemeral, and you seek to challenge the infinite. Celine stepped forward, her voice calm yet resolute. You speak of eternity, but you fail to understand that time is not a tool to be wielded by one. The Othrans have used you to enslave, to conquer. And in the end, it is not your power that will survive. It is those who value life over domination. The Oracle pulsed again and a wave of force rippled through the room, knocking Rook and his team back several steps. The walls trembled and the energy in the air became unbearable. The Oracle's hum reached a deafening crescendo, as though it were gathering all of its power into a single point. You cannot stop me, the voice bellowed, and the chamber seemed to warp around them, time itself becoming twisted. I have seen your future, your past. There is no escape from me. The very fabric of reality bent, and Rook felt his heart race as the world around him seemed to fracture. It was as though time itself had become fluid, slipping between moments, past and future blending together in a chaotic swirl. He staggered, gripping the ground as everything around him began to distort. In the distance he saw flashes of images, fleeting visions of what could be, what might be, what had already passed. Battles, lives, and events unfolded before him, too fast to grasp. Captain? Sinclair shouted, her voice cutting through the disorienting visions. We need to destroy it now. Rook shook his head, trying to clear the confusion from his mind. They couldn't afford to let this be their end. The Othran Empire's reign had been built on the Oracle's power, and if they failed here, everything would unravel. Time itself would break, and the Othrans would remain unchallenged, their stranglehold over the galaxy unbroken. He took a steadying breath, fighting the pull of the visions that threatened to overwhelm him. This was it. They had to finish what they'd started. He glanced at Celine, whose face remained calm amid the chaos. "Celine, can you stabilize the flow?" Rook asked, his voice urgent. "We need to destroy it now. Before it destroys us." Celine's eyes shone with an unearthly light as she closed her eyes and reached out toward the oracle. "I cannot hold it back forever," she murmured. "But I can weaken it, give you the opening you need." With a deep breath, Rook nodded. "Then do it." As Celine extended her senses, the room seemed to still, the overwhelming energy of the oracle beginning to wane. The walls stopped vibrating, the hum of the oracle softened, and the disorienting swirl of time began to slow. It was as though the oracle itself had momentarily paused, caught in Celine's manipulation of time. "Now?" Rook shouted. With a unified roar, the team charged forward. Their weapons fired in unison, striking the heart of the oracle. The structure shuddered, and a violent ripple of energy shot outward, sending shockwaves through the chamber. The oracle screamed. Its voice was now a tortured wail, a sound that seemed to fracture time itself. But it wasn't enough. The oracle's defenses were too strong. It was bending, not breaking. They needed more. "Celine!" Rook shouted, his voice desperate. "We need more." Celine's face was drawn with exertion, sweat beading on her brow. She was pushing herself to the limit, her connection to the oracle beginning to crack. "I can't hold it for much longer," she gasped. The oracle's energy flared, and Rook felt a wave of heat that threatened to burn through his skin. It was as though time itself were collapsing around them, and if they didn't act now, they would be lost forever. Then, in that moment of absolute chaos, Rook realized what they had to do. He didn't have time to second-guess it, to weigh the consequences. The only option was to strike at the very core of the oracle. He drew a second weapon, a detonator they had planted earlier in the journey, a failsafe in case they reached this point. With a steady hand he pressed the button. A flash of blinding light filled the chamber. The oracle trembled, and for a split second, everything went still. And then, with a deafening explosion, the oracle shattered. Time itself seemed to collapse, splitting into 1,000 directions. The air screamed as if torn from the fabric of reality, and for one breathless moment Rook thought they had failed. But then, as the dust settled and the light began to fade, he saw it. The oracle was no more. The chamber around them was gone, replaced by a vast, infinite void that stretched beyond comprehension. The universe had been changed forever. Rook's breath came in ragged gasps as he looked around at his team, his heart racing. "It's over," he whispered, though his voice felt hollow in the vast emptiness around them. But Celine's face was pale, her eyes filled with sorrow. "No," she said quietly. "It has only just begun." As Rook turned toward her, he realized the true cost of what they had done. The universe had been altered, and nothing would ever be the same again. The void that stretched before them was silent, unsettling. The chamber they had been in was gone, replaced by a strange emptiness, a darkness that seemed to hang in the very air itself. The team stood in the aftermath of their victory, or so they thought. The oracle had been destroyed, its immense power shattered. But as the last remnants of the blinding light faded, they realized that their actions had set something much larger into motion. Rook felt a chill run down his spine as he scanned the endless, featureless landscape. The world was gone, but he could still sense the presence of the oracle's power, lingering in the air like a faint hum, something too vast to be fully extinguished. "What just happened?" Sinclair's voice trembled as she stepped forward, her gun still in hand, though she knew there was no immediate threat. "We destroyed the oracle. So why does it feel like we're still inside it?" Celine's face was pale, her silver eyes distant. She had collapsed to her knees, her breath coming in shallow gasps as if the very act of disconnecting from the oracle had drained the life from her. The calm, serene figure they had relied on was gone. In her place, a woman lost, struggling to regain her bearings. "This isn't just a place anymore," Celine whispered. "This isn't just a room or a structure. It's a nexus, a place between the threads of time. And by destroying the oracle, we've altered those threads, cut them apart." Rook's heart sank as her words hit him like a tidal wave. "What does that mean? Is it irreversible?" Celine's head tilted slightly, her eyes locking with his. There was a haunted look in them now, as though she had seen the consequences of their actions, too vividly, too clearly. Time is no longer a single thread. It's been cut, torn. We're floating between the possibilities of what could have been and what might yet be. Rook's mind spun. Are you telling me we've? He couldn't bring himself to say it. You've created a fracture, Celine murmured. A crack in the very fabric of existence. The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating them all. Sinclair stepped forward, her voice sharp as if trying to break the tension that had gripped the room. So, we're stuck in some kind of pocket dimension? A place outside of time? What do we do now? We're not just outside of time, Celine said, her voice weak but insistent. We've altered time. We've become part of it, and part of it is now part of us. The consequences will play out across the universe, and we may never truly understand what we've done. Rook's mind raced. He thought of the Othrans, the empire that had ruled with the Oracle's power. He thought of the billions of lives they had oppressed, the destruction they had wrought, and the years of suffering they had caused. It had been worth it, hadn't it? They had freed the galaxy. But now the cost was beyond their reckoning. Is there any way to undo this? Sinclair asked, her voice full of quiet desperation. Can we put the pieces back together? I don't know, Celine admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The Oracle wasn't just a tool. It was a gate, a bridge. And now the gate is broken. Time itself is splintering, folding upon itself. And there's nothing I can do to stop it? Rook's mind snapped back to reality. The universe was unraveling and there was no going back. The threads of time had been severed, and every ripple would create a new reality. Some would be better, some worse. But all of them would be affected by the fracture they had caused. Suddenly the void around them seemed to flicker. A light, faint at first but growing stronger, appeared in the distance, breaking through the darkness. It was a pinpoint of illumination, and for a moment Rook thought it might be a beacon, a sign of hope. But as they moved toward it, the light began to twist. It wasn't just a light, it was a distortion. Time once again was bending and folding in on itself. And as the light expanded, figures appeared within it. Rook froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figures were familiar. They were human. But not quite. They were reflections of his team, their faces twisted in ways that didn't feel right. Distorted, their eyes hollow, their forms phasing in and out of existence. We're not the only ones here, Celine whispered, her voice trembling. These are echoes, fragments of the possibilities we've altered. We've created ripples in the timeline. These are versions of us from different realities. From different versions of the future. The figures in the light began to move, shifting toward them in unnatural sync. Each step they took seemed to warp the air around them. Rook's heart pounded as he backed away, but the echoes were relentless, pulling closer with every passing second. We have to move, Rook said, his voice urgent. We can't let them reach us. But it was already too late. The first echo reached out, its hand freezing midair as it touched Rook's arm. A surge of energy shot through him, a shock that sent him to his knees. The world around him seemed to twist, and for a moment he saw something that shouldn't have been there. A future. A future where the Othran Empire still reigned, where the Oracle's power had never been broken. Where they had failed. Where everything had fallen apart. He gasped, feeling the weight of 1,000 futures pressing down on him. And then just as quickly the vision vanished, leaving him trembling. Rook? Sinclair shouted, pulling him to his feet. What's happening? Rook's voice was hoarse. I saw it. I saw a future. A future where we didn't succeed. Where the Othrans, they're still in power. We've made a choice, but we don't know how it ends. Celine's eyes were wide as she stared at the swirling light, the fractured echoes surrounding them. The fracture is deeper than I thought. We've altered the course of history, but we've opened the door to every possibility. There are infinite versions of us, of this moment. And they are all converging. What do we do? Sinclair asked, panic rising in her voice. How do we stop it? We don't, Celine said quietly. We can't stop it. But we can shape what comes next. Rook felt the weight of her words. The universe was fractured, broken, but it wasn't beyond repair. The echoes, the endless versions of themselves, were not just threats. They were opportunities. Each version of the future, each ripple, offered a chance to rebuild, to choose a path that might lead to something better. But the cost would be immense. As the echoes of their alternate selves closed in, Rook took a deep breath. He looked at his team, at the woman who had been the catalyst for this change, and at the endless possibilities that lay before them. This was their burden to bear, but it was also their chance to make something new. Let's make sure the next reality is the one we fight for, Rook said, his voice steady. And as the echoes converged, the ripples of fate began to weave a new future. One shaped by the choices they would make and the legacy they would leave behind. Rook stood at the edge of a precipice, not of land but of time itself. Around him, the distorted echoes of his team shimmered, their features shifting between familiar and unfamiliar. Every face was a mirror of what could have been, and every step they took seemed to leave a trail of fractured possibilities behind them. The fractured fabric of time wasn't just something they had to contend with, it was something they had become part of. "Celine," Rook whispered, his voice rough as he stood up straighter, the weight of the future pressing down on him. "What happens now?" Celine, kneeling in the center of the chaotic void, was surrounded by the glowing energy of the fractured timelines. She reached out a trembling hand, her eyes reflecting the endless horizons of alternate realities. "Now we choose. We are standing at the crossroads of countless futures, Rook. We must decide how we guide the shards of this broken timeline. These echoes, they are not enemies. They are us. They are possibilities, dreams, and nightmares of what we could have done differently." The silence stretched, the only sound the hum of fractured time, vibrating around them in waves. The echoes of Rook's team, the distorted versions of themselves, stood watching, waiting. Some had expressions of fear, others hope. It was as if they too had become aware of the consequences of their choices. Sinclair, the ever-steadfast member of the crew, spoke first. Her voice, though calm, held the undercurrent of unease. "We've been given a chance to shape this reality, right? If there are infinite versions of us, then each one is a path we could walk." "That's exactly it," Celine replied, her eyes flicking to Sinclair. "Each choice we make from here on out will ripple through the fracturing timeline. And every choice is a potential future, each with its own set of consequences. But there's no guarantee that any one future is better than the others. Then how do we know what's right?" Sinclair's voice cracked. "How do we even start?" Celine's gaze turned to Rook. There was a deep sadness in her eyes. "I don't have all the answers. But I know that it's not about fixing the past. It's about how we face the future. The universe may never be the same again, but it doesn't mean it has to be doomed. The Oracle was a tool, a weapon of unimaginable power. But we are not bound by it. We have the ability to shape what happens next." Rook clenched his fists at his sides. Every part of him wanted to scream, to demand answers, but he knew Celine spoke the truth. There was no undoing what had been done. No returning to the universe as it was. They had destroyed the Oracle, torn apart the very structure of time. They had made an irreversible choice, and now the consequences were their responsibility to bear. The echoes around them began to shift again, their movements growing more purposeful. The figures of Rook's team from alternate timelines began to speak, their voices overlapping in a cacophony that filled the void. "We could have saved more," one echo of Rook said, his face a mixture of guilt and fury. "We could have stopped the Othrans earlier, before the war spread so far." Another echo, this one with darker features, added, "But we could have destroyed the Oracle with more precision. If we'd done it slowly, we could have avoided the rupture." One of Celine's echoes, her voice trembling, whispered, "We could have prevented this. We didn't have to choose destruction." Rook turned to face these echoes, his heart pounding in his chest. They were each a reflection of his own doubts, fears, and regrets. They were him, yet not him, versions of him that had made different choices or perhaps no choice at all. And now, they were all part of this broken reality, all part of the same collapsing nexus. "We made our choice," Rook said firmly, stepping forward. "We chose to fight, to end the Oracle. We may not know what's coming next, but we have to move forward, together." For a moment, the echoes hesitated, their forms flickering. Then, one by one, they began to nod, though their faces still bore the marks of the weight they carried. Rook felt his own doubts begin to fade, replaced by the cold resolve of someone who had seen the countless futures that could unfold, each more uncertain than the last. "We're all here for a reason," Rook said, his voice carrying a strength he didn't know he had. "Every version of us exists because we are the ones who broke the cycle. We did what no one else could, and now we must be the ones to guide the future." Celine stood up slowly, her body still weak but her presence strong. Her silver eyes locked with Rook's. "The fractures will continue, Rook. We can't stop them completely. But we can guide the ripples. We can choose to rebuild, to create new pathways. It will require every version of us, every choice we made and every choice we didn't make." Suddenly the echoes began to converge, all moving towards Celine and Rook. They were no longer threatening, no longer enemies. Instead they were allies. Extensions of themselves that were bound together by the singular reality they had forged. "The universe isn't just a place," Celine said softly, as if speaking directly to the echoes. "It's a reflection of all our choices. A reflection of every possibility we create. And now we must choose a new path. One that will protect the galaxy, restore balance, and hopefully bring us closer to peace. As the last of the echoes merged into the gathering of Rook and his team, Rook felt a strange calm wash over him. They had come to this moment, this broken fragment of existence, and now they would have to forge their future with the power they had been given. They would fight not just to survive but to build. Celine raised her arms, and the fractured energy in the void pulsed with a new intensity. The choices we make will send ripples through every reality. We may not have control over every future, but we can control our actions. And we can choose the future we want to build. Rook felt the weight of her words settle deep inside him. The choices they made now would affect not just their reality but all of existence. But they were not alone in this. The echoes of their alternate selves had joined them, and together they would reshape the universe. "We can start anew," Rook said, his voice resolute. "We've seen what's possible. We've seen the infinite futures. But the one thing we know for sure is that we must fight for the future we believe in. And we'll face it together." The ripples in the fabric of time began to stabilize. The fractured pieces of the universe were slowly being woven back together, not in the way they once were, but in a way that was uniquely their own. The echoes around them faded, becoming one unified presence. The timelines had merged, and the team now stood at the center of a new reality, one where their choices, their sacrifices, and their strength would guide the future. The reckoning had come. But now it was time to rebuild. And in that moment, Rook knew they had made the right choice. Together they would face whatever came next. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.